Welcome to All the Ships. I'm your host, Chantée Christian. In today's episode, I'll be talking with Dr. Carolyn Howell. She is a psychotherapist who uses her intuition to heal people. Welcome to the show, Carolyn.
Thank you so much for having me, Chantée. I'm excited.
Oh my goodness. I'm so excited for you to be joining me on this professional part of my journey as we are part of a friendship circle. So
absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. I'm blessed to be here.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how you started and how did you get to going from medical training to following your intuition?
So actually, it just kind of came about when I wasn't looking for it. So, of course, I went through all of the medical training, medical school at initially Case Western Reserve, then at Howard University. And then I trained at GW for my residency and then fellowship at Hopkins. And I thought I was doing the thing. Like I was finally there, happy to be practicing as a child and adolescent psychiatrist. And then all of a sudden, I had a hardship with my son. And then my sister said to me, you know what, I think you should reach out to Dr. Melva Green because, you know, she's just got a lot of gifts and I think she can help. At that point, I was just happy to reach out to anybody who I thought could help, but I knew nothing about her. And when I called her, she said, beloved, I've been waiting on you to call me for a long time. And she said, you were a medicine woman in your past life. And you were meant to practice psychiatry outside of the bounds of Western medicine. And I didn't believe her. I really didn't. At that point, I didn't even think I believed in past lives.
Well.
And so ultimately, she gave me some advice regarding my son. My son hung up. And then I actually didn't really act on anything that she said outside of just a little bit regarding my son. And then 3 years later, I called her back and was like, what was that you had said again?
3 years later.
3 years later. And to be honest with you, I think it was that catapulted me into this new realm of understanding about the fullness of my gifts. Because as a psychiatrist in residency, they don't train you about how to use your intuition. Even as a physician just going through medical school, they didn't use the word intuition.
Right.
But in my work with her, because I agreed to work with her for a year so that she can kind of help me in my what she calls shamanic embodiment. And in that process, I learned about the importance of tapping into your God-given intuition. And it changed the way that I practice medicine because I help others to tap into their intuition because that's where your wisdom is to heal. We all have it. It's God-given. That's where all of the wisdom is. So we just sometimes need a guide to learn how to tap into that. And that was a part of my process with her.
I love this so much because one of the things that, I can't remember where I heard it from, but they said, you know, we pray to God and that's like us calling him. And then his answer to us is our intuition. And so often we ignore it.
Yes.
Or we don't know what it is because we don't know how to pay attention to it. We're not paying attention to the signs of it.
Exactly.
And I feel like when it comes to relationships, especially even just with ourselves, learning how to trust ourselves, learning how to heal ourselves, if we're paying attention to our body, it's literally life-changing.
Yes.
Right?
It is.
And so you are also working with children. So the part of the way that this show came about, right, is that I'm an only child. And I found that as a practitioner, that it was really important for me to understand how I operated, right? And so part of that was just all of the dynamics that come along with families.
Yes.
Because that is where we learn first how to operate in the world.
Oh my, yes.
Right. So how have you seen that teaching children and their parents how to operate with just healing from a medical perspective and from a spiritual perspective?
So I have to think about my son, my 6-year-old, because even just today, the advice he gave me was, okay, Mom, make sure you follow your inner spirit.
Ooh.
He's 6.
Yeah.
And
I love that.
And then he said, "Oh, I got one other tidbit of information, Mom. One other piece of advice. Make sure you thank whoever had you there." So I think I made him proud because I think I did that in the beginning.
That.
But I think to answer your question though more fully, I think sometimes it's just helpful for parents to listen to a conversation that someone else is having with their children. Even that is therapeutic in and of itself. Because sometimes we find ourselves just kind of in a pattern, and I think that it's broken, in a very useful way. When you can hear someone else talking to your child, you almost automatically have a different perspective of them. And so you're learning them from a different angle. But because I think so much of what I do is listening to, children are no different.
Yeah.
Like, children need to feel heard too. And, in a culture, I think, in my age group in 40s, we may have come up with like, children are not to be heard. That's or right. What it was the saying.
Children are supposed to be seen and not heard.
And not heard. But that is so false, because that is to assume that children don't have anything to say.
Yeah.
But they do.
They got a lot to say.
They have a lot to say.
A lot.
They do. And I'm here for it all. But I guess that's part of how I knew that this was the work for me, because I love talking to children.
Yeah.
Yeah. I learn from them.
And what's really also really cool about that is that, so what's the age where usually they say like you could determine the child's just personality and behavior around a certain age?
So usually around 5 or 6. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so with your 6-year-old.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So thoughtful already. Right. So in it. Right.
He just picked up right where he left off, really. Yeah, it's like he's been here before.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's funny you say that, because when you talk about being here before, you're also trained in past life regression.
Yes. That was a part of my work that I wasn't prepared for when I met Dr. Green. So she taught me how to perform past life regressions, but first I had to do my own. So I could see myself, because part of me was kind of like, does she really know she's, is this really for real? Like what she's, because her gift is seeing, she saw this, but for me, I needed to be made a believer. And in psychiatry, we learn, like in the older days in psychiatry, we learn the art of hypnosis, but it's not really taught now with the advent of advances in medicine.
Sure. So
being able to kind of come back to some of those techniques is useful. It's useful. Yeah, you can. That's a mechanism by which one can tap into their own inner wisdom.
The first time I heard about past life regressions is with a book by Dr. Brian Weiss.
Many masters, many lives, many masters.
Many lives, many masters. Changed my life.
Yeah.
Changed my life.
Me too.
Changed my life. I even went to go see him.
Did you?
Yes.
Oh my God, I know that was just magnificent. That was the first book I read in my year's work with Dr. Green.
Really?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And people know I don't really like to read. But I listened to that book and I read it. So I did not know this ahead of time, that you had read the book. And I didn't even know that you were trained in past life regressions. Again, like I said, we have in a friendship circle.
Yes.
Right? And so when I said earlier that it changed my life, but I'm not a practicing MD or a psychologist, right? Or psychotherapist. And so how has it changed and affected your life as you are practicing on people and healing?
It was a new awareness. It was understanding that there is so much more to who we are than just kind of what exists in the flesh.
Yeah.
And also what exists in this lifetime. And that means that our soul is on a continuous journey across lifetimes.
Yes.
And there is some valuable information that we have that we obtain through each incarnation. And I think that's really the biggest thing. Yeah. And I loved in the book how it was just so spontaneous, how Catherine is the patient in the book, how she just started to speak about past lives and new information about him that was uncanny. It's like, how could she know?
Yeah.
So I think it was just a new awareness about something that would allow me to better work with people to understand themselves and their soul.
Yeah. And I wonder, because for me, I was a skeptic. I was like, past life regressions,
Right.
because I had such a challenging space between what I grew up in from a Christianity perspective and the perception of spirituality and what does that look like. And so the more that I dug, the more I found resistance, right? And so when we share a mutual friend.
Yes.
And we like to call it hocus pocus, right? Like everybody know. We doing a hocus pocus over here. It's the hocus pocus. Right? I got my incense, I got my Palo Santo, I got my sage, I'm ready.
Yes.
And right. When I read that book, it prepared I was on a journey to be prepared for something.
Yes.
Right. And so one of my favorite people in the world was getting older, my great-grandmother, one of my great-grandmothers, and I knew that she was going, to die because that's the way life works. And I knew that with the mindset that I had, that I wasn't ready. Literally just was not ready. And I started seeking readiness, right? And so as a believer of God who created the universe, so I use them interchangeably.
Yes.
Right? I had to figure out, how is it that I'm so connected to this one person? And why do I feel like when she goes, y'all gonna have to come dig me up out this ground because that's my girl.
Right.
And what Brian's book did for me was it allowed me to realize that we've been in circles together.
Yes.
Right.
Soul family.
Family.
Yeah.
Right. And it allowed me to open up my mind and my heart to seeing that when people say I'm an old soul.
Yes, exactly. Just like my son. Yes.
Yes. Right.
Yes.
So what does that mean? What does that look like? Because
don't we say things and then we don't necessarily really think deeply about what it means, and we've been saying it for years?
All the time.
That's an old soul.
That's an old soul. They've been here before.
They've been here before.
But they don't really mean it like that. Right.
Or at least they don't realize that they mean it like that. But yeah. That's where it comes from.
That is where it comes from.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the connections that we have with people, right? When we first meet people and we're like, oh my God, I feel like I've known you forever.
Yes, exactly. There's something more to that.
Yeah.
It's always so much more than meets the eye.
Always.
I think there's so much more under the surface. And I think that's what this was about in your new awareness in terms of your relationship is with your grandmother. Yeah.
My great-grandmother.
Your great-grandmother. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this. And I love that you are taking a medical and a spiritual stance and mixing them together, because we are not linear.
Yes.
Right. And neither is our healing.
No, that's right. That's right. And that's a big part of this. That's probably what Dr. Green meant when she was saying outside of the bounds of Western medicine in a more full and comprehensive way. Yeah. But I needed to see it from the vantage point of just who I've always been as a healer.
Yeah.
And I think that once I was able to see that with my own eyes, then I could embody that and walk into the fullness. And so your soul remembers. It's like riding a bike, but you have to position yourself to be able to tap into that wisdom, to be able to remember. It's not quite as readily available as it is to children. Now, I haven't regressed children, only adults, but I feel like, with my son, for example, at like maybe 4, he spontaneously would remember and talk about it.
Yeah.
And I think at UVA, they study children that have had past lives, and they talk about how around age 6 is when kids start to forget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes so much sense, though. Like, what do you remember from age 6 to 0?
Right.
Much of nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So if an adult were to want to work out and work with you and reach out to you, how would they get in contact with you?
Well, the best way is through my website at carolynhowellmd.com.
Okay.
Yeah, you can schedule a free discovery call that way through my website.
Perfect. I love that you are here talking about this with me so much. I cannot believe it. So And you would think that I was getting paid by Brian, but if
I'm
not, however, if a sponsorship, I'm willing and open.
Yes.
Just put that out there. Ask not, receive not. But
yes. Amen.
I went to see him in Houston a few years ago, and because he doesn't do individuals anymore, but he does do groups. And he did many regressions.
Oh, wow.
And it was insane at the experience because, I believe, but I was like, I don't really.
Yeah.
I'm like a super fan, but I was like, I don't know.
I get it.
Amazing.
Was it amazing?
It was so amazing.
Oh, my.
And the thing that I loved most about it was that I was in a space with like-minded people.
Yes.
Who weren't judging because I was experimenting and trying something out. And that's one of the things that I would encourage anyone who's listening to this conversation is to be open.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
It might not be what you're used to, and it might not be something that you want to get down with, and that's okay.
It's okay, but at least you could figure that out in the experience of it and just decide.
Make a
decision,
yeah. Because, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but as a coach, right, and as a consultant, I know that there is no one prescription and no one method and no one path.
That's right.
For everything, and specifically in healing.
Agreed. I agree, absolutely. And a lot of times people come to me already with this inner awareness, this inner knowing that there is something more.
Yeah.
And so it's not something I have to suggest, really. It's something that they've already come to that they just want to explore more deeply. Yes. And that's the beauty of it, because then it's really just a dance. Like, it's just a natural evolution.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but it's nothing to be afraid of. And I think that's the thing. Fear keeps us in a place of not even just having a sense of openness and flexibility. To even be in a position to then now be empowered with the wisdom to then decide.
I love this. I like to tell my clients that when we're operating out of a space of fear, we see anxiety, we see control, and we see all of these things start to manifest.
Absolutely.
Versus when we are operating from a space of intent and of soul, it's the peace that comes along with it. And it's just so different. Now, I will say I am a recovering control freak. And so there is that.
Me too. Recovering, in progress. Yes, indeed. But it is an illusion, right? Ooh. Control is an illusion. So, and actually, when we are operating from a place of control and anxiety, we're not operating from a place of flow and creativity. And then in that sense, we can really just miss the magic.
Ooh.
Like, I get
That's
that
good.
To be driven and professional, we're taught that we got to be in control. And it gets just reinforced over time because with your successes, then it just convinces you that you need to continue to be in control.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you realize that, oh, okay, wait a minute. Actually, I'm missing out on those moments that just kind of happened organically that actually did change my life.
Yeah.
Right. So that flexibility, and actually we were born creators. And so then that's a natural state of ebb and flow.
Yes.
Right. So it's a spark.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to control everything, then you miss it.
Oof.
Yeah,
you
don't want to miss out on the magic.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, but I identify with that even just from my Christian upbringing too, in terms of just being fearful to kind of think outside of a certain box.
Yeah. Right? And it's interesting that you say that, because one of the really things that I have been able to connect over the years is that if we're paying attention, those same acts of creating and creativity are spoken about throughout the Bible, right? And they are things that are overseen and things that we're not seeing. So, like, for example, when we talk about faith and believing in something, even though you can't see it, because it's going to happen, that is manifesting. You are creating a space of thinking and believing that something can happen.
Yes.
Even though you can't see it.
Touch it, feel it. No, right.
Yeah.
That's right. but you can imagine it, you know, from a place of creativity. And that is what is actually going to solidify the manifestation process, is to visualize.
Yeah.
Like we can't take that step for granted.
Yeah.
It actually does allow us to operate from a place where it starts to change things, because it seeps into our subconscious, and our subconscious starts to then shape our superconscious, which is where God lies.
Yeah.
Right? That's where God lies. So we have to be able to tap into that space in order to operate in alignment with God, right? And in alignment with our higher selves.
Yes. I love this, because I talk about what I call the triple A's, and their awareness, acceptance, and authenticity. And while it sounds like it's linear, it's really circular, and it goes along and along. And then there's a C in there that I leave out, but because it doesn't really go with it.
Okay.
But it's called choice. And conscious choice. The more awareness that we have, the more conscious choices that we can make.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
And I like to tell my clients that I feel like awareness is like a searchlight, because once that joker get a hold of you, it's like, where you at?
Right.
Come back over here.
Right.
Come back. And
you
get to decide how you want to move forward.
Yes.
And what you want to accept and when.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Just like how we were talking earlier, when you talk about you weren't ready for it. It took you 3 years to come back around and say, okay, I'm open to this.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. It had to resonate with me.
It had to resonate.
My life had to play out in ways that it kind of just, I would remember, and it would just echo.
Yes.
And the patients I was seeing, I mean, because they were bringing some things to me that went beyond like this medication and that medication, or even this evidence-based psychotherapy. I mean, they were saying things that I wasn't reading about in the medical literature, and I didn't know how to address.
Yeah.
And I started to pay attention to why that was happening. And then it started a nudging inside of me, you know, that I understood now, and then her words resonated.
Yeah. Because you were ready.
Yeah.
Right. Because we can hear the exact same message multiple times and still hear it differently every time.
Isn't that so true? It's like the gospel song that you used to singing, but then the words just kind of dance on something.
I wish I had something white to throw at you. Yes.
That then you're like, oh, that's what is meant by this song. It's not just rote. Somehow life allowed us to get to a place where it just automatically had meaning.
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
I love those moments. Yeah.
I love them.
Yeah.
I love them. And I love that it was your clients that allowed you to see, right? Because like energy attracts like energy, but we don't attract what we want. We attract who we are.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And so in that, and knowing that, right, sometimes we don't realize it. And so, right, when you're looking around at the people that are around you, or how your children are acting and all the things, you're like, well, wait a minute, what's wrong with them?
Yep.
And part of the awareness is, well, hold on, you're the common denominator.
Yes, indeed.
Right. And so, and there's nothing wrong with them. Right. There is definitely a purpose and a reason for the exchange and the interaction and the behavior.
Right. It is the law of it's the law of attraction, the law of harmony showing up in a real way, where yes, you have to turn that mirror towards you to see what you're reflecting. Yeah. And understand that what's showing up is with purpose. And it's not about judgment, right? It's not about blame, it's not about self-persecution. It's about sitting with it just for a moment, to then allow it to motivate you, to change you, to say, okay, this is something I need to look at just a little bit more deeply. And perhaps this is something that I need to change. It's always about us. It's always about numero uno.
Always.
Always, as much as frustrating as that can be in relationship with people.
Yes.
It is always about us.
Always.
Yeah, we are the change, right? We are the change. And so
I love that.
I had to humble myself and I'm still trying to work on humbling myself to really understand that and embody that in my relationships with people. Yeah.
Yeah, because people will people.
Won't they people?
People will people
and they
all
don't
over it.
Stop peopling, right?
No. And we are people.
Right.
People.
So right. We're all one. So
yes. And so if the people were interested in a shift and in a change and wanted to work with you, what would it look like for them to contact you?
The best way is through my website at carolynhowellmd.com.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yes.
Thank you, Carolyn, for joining me on today's episode.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for joining as well. And remember, seek the support you need to live the life you deserve. What would it take for you to live your life in color and on purpose? Got it? Great. Until next time, see you later.
That was good.
Did I say Dr. Brown at first and then change it to Dr. Green?
I don't know.
I heard you say green.
And then you can call him Dr. Red. I mean, just
Carolyn.
go through the color spectrum.
Yeah.
As you go, it'll be fine.
Oh my gosh, Dr. Carolyn. I have a Nova Green.
I'll probably call you Carolyn throughout our conversation.
You guys did good. You guys did good. Yeah.
You got what? Make insurance.
I have. Oh no, I don't have it.
It was this company I've heard of called LED.
You got what? Make insurance.
I have. Oh no, I don't have it.
You got what? Make insurance.
I have. Oh no, I don't have it.